Look right here. This single frame is exactly why 16 people just lost their vacation privileges forever. When a massive brawl exploded in the Port Miami customs line, no one was arrested. The police walked away, and a court case doesn't exist because both families refused to press charges. But watch what happens when this man grabs a solid steel security post. Carnival Cruise Line didn't wait for a judge. They watched this exact video, tracked down all 16 faces, and dropped a permanent lifetime ban. How did a simple argument turn into a weaponized riot that forced a cruise giant to rewrite their security playbook? Want the real truth behind cases like this? Hit subscribe. We break down verified facts every week, right here on U.S. Crime Cases. Let's begin. It is a fact. On Monday, June 20th, 2026, inside Terminal F at Port Miami, a massive brawl broke out between two families. But before we get into the heavy details, I want you to picture the scene, because the human element really matters here. We are talking about the very end of a family vacation. The Carnival Conquest had just docked in Miami after a routine 3-night trip to the Bahamas. Imagine you are there. You have spent the last few days soaking in the sun, enjoying the ocean, and making beautiful memories with your family. You are completely relaxed, but now it is early Monday morning. According to port officials, it was around 8 in the morning. If you have ever been on a cruise, you know this exact feeling. The vacation high is gone. Everyone is exhausted. You are carrying heavy bags. Maybe you have fussy toddlers who just want to sleep, and you are standing in this massive zigzagging line waiting to clear federal customs, right? We have all been there. I know I have. It is a high-stress environment, but 99% of the time, people just keep to themselves, check their phones, and shuffle forward, but not this time. According to authorities on the scene, extreme debarkation stress and long wait times caused a verbal argument to spark between two separate family groups waiting in line. I really want us to remember the innocent bystanders here. Surrounding these two groups were hundreds of other passengers. Elderly couples, young mothers, kids sitting on suitcases. They had absolutely nothing to do with this. They just wanted to go home, and instead they were about to get caught in the middle of a terrifying situation. What exactly started it? The video evidence does not capture the initial words, and the police report just calls it a dispute. According to the police, neither side was willing to explain the exact trigger when interviewed later. Maybe someone bumped a suitcase. Maybe someone felt they were being cut in line. If we look at it fairly from both sides, one family might have felt completely disrespected or crowded, while the other family might have felt they were being aggressively targeted. We just do not know for sure. Regardless of who said what we do know, and what the video shows, is how fast those words turned into physical violence. The physical dispute started instantly. When you look closely at the raw footage captured by bystanders, the breakdown of order happens in seconds. The customs hall at Terminal F is designed to move thousands of people safely. It is filled with those standard retractable belt stanchions, the heavy metal poles with the fabric belts that keep the lines organized. According to port security, these metal posts weigh roughly 20 to 30 pounds each. They are heavy on purpose so they do not tip over easily. The footage shows that the physical contact began near the very middle of the processing queue. It started between two women. The video shows one woman wearing a black strapless dress and a silk hair bonnet, suddenly ducking underneath the fabric belt of the barrier. She crosses out of her lane, steps into the parallel line lane, and directly confronts another woman who is wearing polka dot pajamas. Wow, just think about that for a second. In the middle of a federal facility, the tension was so incredibly high that someone actually left their designated area to physically engage another person. Within 3 seconds, hands are flying. The video shows hair pulling, wild punches, and multiple people falling backward over the line barriers. The woman in the polka dot pajamas attempts to shield herself from the charge, but the sheer momentum knocks people off balance. They crash onto the hard, smooth tile floor of the customs facility. According to eyewitnesses, many of the passengers were either barefoot or just wearing socks, which is pretty common when people are trying to pack quickly and just want to get through security comfortably. Because of the slippery floor, people are sliding, scrambling, and struggling to stay upright. As the two women wrestle on the floor, family members from both sides immediately jump over the dividers. This is where you really have to feel for the people standing nearby. I see innocent travelers looking absolutely panicked in the background of this video. Mothers are physically grabbing their children and pulling them backward. People are abandoning their bags just to get out of the way. This is where the situation escalates from a localized argument into a weaponized riot. The video shows large pieces of hard-shell roller luggage being lifted above people's heads. They are being hurled directly into the scrum, turning ordinary travel bags into heavy projectiles. In one heartbreaking moment of the video, you can clearly see luggage strike passengers who appear completely unrelated to the dispute. They were just trying to leave the terminal, and they get hit. According to witness accounts, people were screaming for help, yelling for security to intervene, and begging the families to stop. But they didn't stop. They kept going. Then comes the climax of the footage, the part that genuinely makes you hold your breath. A man in a black tank top steps up to one of those heavy steel stanchion posts we talked about earlier. He wrenches it off the floor. He lifts the solid steel base into the air, and he swings it like a club directly into the center of the fighting crowd. Right? Let that sink in. I see that and I just shudder. A 30-pound piece of solid metal swinging at head level in a crowded room full of families. Bystanders can be heard screaming in absolute terror, scrambling backward and knocking over dozens of other barriers just to escape the path of the metal post. If that post had connected cleanly with someone's head, we could easily be talking about a fatal tragedy today instead of a cruise ban. Fortunately, according to official reports, it did not cause a catastrophic injury, but the intent and the danger were undeniably real. What makes this video so unique and honestly so bold is the location. This did not happen out in the streets. It did not happen at a late-night bar. It happened inside a federal security facility. Terminal F at Port Miami houses U.S. Customs and Border Protection operations. Because of this, federal officers were standing just yards away when the very first punch was thrown. The video shows uniformed U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers, CBP agents, running into the camera frame within 15 seconds of that heavy stanchion being swung. You have to respect the bravery of these officers. They didn't hesitate. Alongside Port Miami security guards, they physically threw their own bodies between the two feuding families to stop the violence. But stopping a brawl of this size is not easy. According to CBP statements, the expanding nature of the fight, with more people continuously jumping in from both sides, made it incredibly difficult to secure the room. It took nearly 4 minutes of intense physical restraint, loud verbal commands, shouting, and tactical positioning to completely separate the 16 individuals involved. During these 4 minutes, the entire customs processing operation for the Carnival Conquest came to a dead halt. Hundreds of innocent passengers were pinned against the walls. We see fathers forced to shield their children behind stacks of luggage. We see people visibly shaking, holding each other tightly. They were trapped there until the Miami-Dade Police Department could arrive with necessary backup to fully secure the room. The true victims in this story are not just the people who got punched. The victims are the hundreds of innocent families who had their peaceful vacation shattered by a traumatic, violent event that they could not easily escape from. Once the police arrived, the situation was eventually neutralized. But here's the part that confused so many people online. Despite the visible violence, despite the luggage throwing and the swinging metal post, the police said no arrests were made. According to the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office, when they separated the groups and interviewed the participants, both families outright refused to press criminal charges against one another. The police classified it as a mutual combatant incident. In the eyes of the law, if both sides willingly participate and neither side claims to be a victim seeking prosecution, the police often cannot make an arrest for a misdemeanor brawl. But while the justice system walked away, Carnival Cruise Line did not. They reviewed the evidence. They looked at the same video we are looking at right now. According to corporate statements, they identified all 16 people involved and handed down a lifetime ban. No court date, no judge, No jury, just a permanent end to their cruising days with the company. Let me tell you, when you watch this footage and see the terror in the eyes of the innocent bystanders, you really understand why a corporation would step in so aggressively to protect its guests. It is a stark reminder of how quickly things can spiral out of control. We are going to dig deeper into the legal loophole that allowed this swift ban to happen. But for now, we just have to acknowledge the absolute chaos that unfolded on that Monday morning in Miami and hold some empathy for everyone who was just trying to make it home. Miami-Dade police and customs officers rushed the crowd and successfully separated both parties. Just picture that moment for a second. The heavy breathing, the adrenaline, the absolute shock hanging in the air inside Terminal F. The officers threw themselves into the middle of this chaos and finally managed to pull these people apart. Wow. You can only imagine the sheer relief those innocent bystanders felt when the uniforms finally broke through. We are talking about hundreds of everyday people, grandparents, little kids, solo travelers, who had just been pinned against the walls, totally terrified, shielding their faces from flying luggage and swinging steel. These are the real victims of this morning. They were trapped in a federal customs line, exhausted from a long trip, just waiting to get their passports stamped so they could go home. Instead, they were subjected to a traumatic, violent event right in front of their eyes. When the police finally secured the room, the immediate assumption from everyone watching, and probably from the bystanders huddled in the corners, was that these 16 people were leaving in handcuffs. I mean, you swing a 30-pound metal stanchion in a crowded room, you go to jail, right? That is what logic tells us. However, official police reports confirm that neither family agreed to press criminal charges against the other. Because it was deemed mutual combat and the victims refused to cooperate, police made 0 arrests. No criminal court case exists. To really understand why nobody went to jail that morning, we have to look directly at how criminal law operates in the state of Florida regarding misdemeanor battery. It is a complex reality, but it is the truth. According to the Miami-Dade Police Department, when officers arrive at a scene where a physical fight has already concluded, they must legally evaluate the exact nature of the offenses. Police said that when they got there, the active fighting had mostly stopped because the Customs and Border Protection officers had already intervened. Under Florida law, if no local law enforcement officer personally witnesses the initial physical contact, their hands are legally tied in a very specific way. If the injuries do not cross the legal threshold of felony aggravated battery, meaning no one was killed and no one suffered permanent severe bodily harm, the police cannot make an immediate misdemeanor arrest on the spot unless a victim steps forward to sign a formal complaint. The police report states that members of both families definitely had visible injuries. They had scratches, fresh bruises, and torn clothing. But here is where the criminal justice system hits a wall. When police officers separated the groups and sat them down to interview the primary combatants from both sides, every single one of them shut down. The police said that when asked if they wanted to press charges, both sides explicitly stated they did not want to pursue legal action. Under Florida law, this scenario is frequently classified as mutual combat. Mutual combat means that 2 or more parties entered into a physical fight voluntarily. Because both sides chose to fight and both sides adamantly refused to cooperate with a state prosecution, the Miami-Dade Police Department had absolutely no legal ground to hold anyone in custody. I see this happen a lot in public disturbance cases. The court system requires a cooperating victim to prosecute a misdemeanor assault. Since no one claimed to be a victim, the police essentially had to treat it as an argument that just got out of hand. The police took their identification details, filed an official incident report for the public record, and simply escorted both groups off the port property in separate directions. No handcuffs were used, no booking photos were taken, and no state or federal court dates were set. They just walked out into the Miami sunshine. If you haven't subscribed to U.S. Crime Cases yet, hit that button right now so we can keep bringing you the verified truth every week. This brings us to a massive divide. This is where the massive divide between the criminal justice system and private corporate law becomes entirely clear. When the footage of this brawl leaked online, there was an immediate wave of public outrage. Many people watching the viral video assumed that because the police let everyone walk away, these passengers got off completely scot-free. They thought the justice system failed the innocent bystanders who had their safety threatened. But they forgot about the paperwork. They forgot about the documents everyone signs before they ever step foot on a cruise ship. Here is the legal reality of the situation. Carnival Cruise Line does not need a police arrest or a judge's ruling to take action. When a traveler books a vacation with Carnival Cruise Line, they enter into a civil legal agreement known as the passage contract. This is not just a polite list of suggestions. This contract is a legally binding document governed by federal maritime law and civil contract law. It dictates exactly what a passenger can and cannot do from the very moment they arrive at the departure terminal until the exact moment they completely exit the destination terminal on land. Section 11 of the Carnival Cruise Line ticket contract is incredibly clear about guest behavior. It states that the cruise line maintains sole, unreviewable discretion to determine if a guest's conduct is disruptive, dangerous, or detrimental to the comfort and safety of other passengers or crew members. I want you to really listen to that phrasing because it is the key to everything that happened next. The contract does not say if a guest is convicted of a crime. It does not say if the police make an arrest. It specifically says if the company determines the behavior is unacceptable. Because this massive brawl happened in their terminal during debarkation, Carnival used the viral video and ship manifests to identify all 16 faces and enforce a permanent corporate ban immediately. Some people argued online that because the fight happened on land, off the actual ship, Carnival had no right to punish them. But the court says otherwise in matters of civil contracts. Terminal F is a facility operated in direct partnership with the cruise line for the express purpose of embarking and debarking Carnival passengers. Because they were still actively in the customs line, concluding their travel, the company maintained full contractual jurisdiction over the individuals involved. Carnival's security team did not wait for a police investigation to wrap up. They did not sit around waiting for a detective to call them. While the families were busy refusing to press charges with the Miami-Dade police outside, Carnival's corporate security officers were already working behind closed doors. They were immediately downloading the viral social media videos and pulling the terminal's high-definition surveillance feeds from the ceiling cameras. We live in an era of incredible digital surveillance, especially at international borders. By cross-referencing the faces captured in the violent video with the digital ship manifests, the security team knew exactly who was involved. They also used facial recognition security data that is routinely collected during the cruise disembarkation process by Customs and Border Protection. Carnival successfully and undeniably identified all 16 individuals who actively participated in the physical violence. Within hours of the incident, long before these people probably even made it to their homes, corporate lawyers issued 16 formal individual notices of lifetime bans. The speed of this action is honestly fascinating. It proves that a private corporation operating under civil contract law can move infinitely faster than a government court system bound by constitutional due process. The criminal justice system is slow. It requires formal interviews, Miranda rights, cooperating victims, and a heavy burden of proof. But Carnival did not need to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury of their peers. They only needed the visual proof that their contract terms had been aggressively broken on their property. They looked at the footage, they saw the trauma inflicted on the innocent families who were just trying to clear customs, and they made a permanent decision. The police walked away because the law forced them to, but Carnival locked the door behind them. They made sure that these 16 individuals would never have the opportunity to jeopardize the safety of their passengers ever again. They locked the door behind them, and honestly, when you really sit down and look at what that means, the consequences are staggering. Landing on Carnival's Do Not Sail list is an immediate financial disaster for these families. Under the contract rules, a safety ban means they completely forfeit any upcoming vacation bookings, future cruise credits, deposits, and accumulated loyalty points across Carnival and all its sister brands, with zero right to a refund. I see people online talking about this, and many of them do not realize how far this corporate umbrella actually reaches. To fully understand the massive financial impact of a lifetime corporate ban, you have to look at the structure of the modern cruise industry. Carnival Cruise Line is not just an isolated company with a few ships in Florida. It is the flagship brand of Carnival Corporation and PLC. This massive parent company controls a significant portion of the entire global cruise market, right? It is huge. When Carnival issues a permanent do not sail order, that ban does not just keep you off the standard Carnival fun ships. The corporate policy dictates that a lifetime ban for violent or disruptive behavior is shared across the entire corporate fleet. This means the 16 banned passengers are now legally blocked from booking travel on Holland America Line, Princess Cruises, Seabourn, Costa Cruises, Ida Cruises, P&O Cruises, and Cunard Line. Wow. With one single signature from corporate security, these 16 individuals were effectively locked out of a massive portion of the international vacation industry for the rest of their lives. Imagine being one of those people 10 years from now. Maybe you want to take a quiet luxury trip to Alaska on Princess Cruises for a family reunion. You go online, you try to book the ticket, and the system denies you because of a fight you got into on a Monday morning in Miami a decade ago. It follows you forever. And the financial loss goes far deeper than just losing the right to book a future trip. It hits the wallet immediately. According to Section 11 of the passenger ticket contract, if a guest is banned or removed due to a violation of the safety code of conduct, the cruise line is under zero legal obligation to return their money. If you look at the fine print, the company states they hold no liability for interrupted travel. This means any funds paid for upcoming cruises that these families might have booked months in advance are immediately forfeited. If they had a big holiday cruise planned for December and already paid $5,000 toward it, that money is just gone. Any accumulated loyalty points earned through thousands of dollars of past travel are instantly wiped out. If any of the banned individuals had active vacation deposits floating in the system, those corporate accounts were closed permanently with a $0 balance. There is no appeal process, there is no mediation board, there is no customer service manager you can yell at to get a refund. It is just over. Beyond the financial destruction for the individuals involved, this brawl has sparked an intense operational discussion among logistics and security experts down at Port Miami. And this is where we have to center our focus back on the real victims here. The hundreds of innocent bystanders, the families, the kids, the elderly travelers who were trapped in that room. They didn't sign up to be in the middle of a wrestling match. They were just trying to follow the rules and go home safely. Terminal F handles hundreds of thousands of passengers every single year, and the morning debarkation window is well known by port authorities as the highest stress period of any cruise vacation. Think about the environment for a second. Put yourself in their shoes. You have thousands of people who were forced to wake up at 6 a.m. They have just spent days eating and drinking heavily. They are carrying heavy, awkward bags. They are trying to navigate complex customs lines while quietly panicking about catching their flights at Miami International Airport on time. It is a complete logistical pressure cooker. You put that many exhausted people in a confined space, and the tension is naturally going to be thick. But that does not excuse violence. Port insiders report that Carnival and U.S. Customs and Border Protection are currently evaluating major infrastructural changes to prevent another line-cutting argument from turning into a riot that puts innocent people in danger. One proposed solution currently on the table is the implementation of rigid, floor-anchored barricades instead of the mobile, lightweight stanchions we saw in the video. The logic is simple, and honestly, it makes a lot of sense. If the stanchions cannot be lifted, they cannot be used as weapons. You saw the video. You saw that man swing a 30-pound steel base into a crowd of people. CBP and port officials realize they can no longer have loose heaving around in an area where tensions run this high. Additionally, discussions are underway to implement strict staggered debarkation schedules based on deck numbers. Right now, a lot of people just rush the exits the second the ship clears customs. Port officials are looking at forcing passengers to remain in the ship's public lounges until their specific group is called, thereby drastically reducing the physical density of the crowds inside the customs hall. If there are fewer people in the room, there is more space to breathe, less friction, and less chance of an innocent family getting caught in a crossfire of flying luggage. All of this brings us to the broader public conversation that is currently dominating travel forums and social media comment sections. This specific fight in Miami has become the primary example of a highly debated trend, the perceived post-pandemic breakdown of basic public decorum. People are strongly divided on how this whole situation was handled. Let's break down the two distinct sides of this public debate through neutral, system-focused questions. First, let's look at the debate surrounding corporate policy versus public spaces. Since this altercation occurred inside a port terminal on land, after passengers had already physically disembarked the ship, should a private cruise line actually have the authority to issue lifetime bans before a formal police investigation concludes? Or should corporate penalties only apply to incidents that occurred directly on board the vessel out at sea? Side A of this debate argues that the terminal is an absolute extension of the cruise experience. Many frequent cruisers completely support Carnival's swift action. They argue that a strict, zero-tolerance policy is the only way to protect families and keep vacation environments safe from violence. They believe the company has a moral and contractual duty to protect its brand image and its future passengers at every single stage of the journey, and including the customs line. Side B counter-argues the opposite. Some legal advocates and civil rights-minded travelers are questioning what they see as corporate overreach. They are debating whether it is right for a private company to hand down a lifetime ban for an incident that occurred on U.S. soil. They argue that once a passenger steps off the gangway and onto American ground, they are standing in a quasi-public transport hub. Therefore, critics argue they should be subject only to standard constitutional law and local law enforcement oversight, not rapid corporate vigilante justice based on a viral video. Second, we really have to consider the efficacy of private deterrence. With the police making zero arrests due to a lack of victim cooperation, Carnival Cruise Line used corporate bans as the final and only punishment. Does this swift corporate action serve as a stronger deterrent for future travel safety than relying on the traditional criminal justice system? Supporters of the corporate action point out that the criminal courts are slow, clogged, and easily derailed when victims simply refuse to cooperate, just like the police said happened here. A lifetime ban hurts immediately. It hits you in the wallet, it ruins your future plans, and it sends a clear, undeniable message across the internet that bad behavior has instant consequences. Critics, however, question whether a corporate ban actually deters anyone in the real world. Does a ban cross your mind in the heat of passion when you are angry in a line? Critics argue that it simply functions as a public relations move. They say it makes the cruise line look tough for the cameras while doing absolutely nothing to solve the underlying anger issues and lack of emotional control of the modern traveler. Finally, we must analyze infrastructure and stress management. Logistics experts point out that morning debarkation lines inherently create high-stress environments due to long wait times and severe fatigue. Should port authorities focus entirely on changing terminal layouts and scheduling to prevent these flashpoints? Or is passenger behavior strictly an individual responsibility that infrastructure simply cannot fix? One side believes that if you herd humans into tight, hot, slow-moving lines like cattle, friction is an inevitable mathematical certainty that the system design itself caused. They argue that better flow means less stress, which means zero fights. The other side firmly maintains that millions of people navigate long, uncomfortable lines every single day, at grocery stores, at airports, at theme parks, without ripping steel posts off the ground to hit their neighbors. To them, the blame sits 100% on an individual lack of self-control, and no amount of line spacing will fix a person who chooses violence. What do you think? Was Carnival completely justified in banning all 16 people instantly, or should they have waited for an official police investigation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for staying till the end of this story with us today. If you want more verified truth, please subscribe right now.